Thank you, Victor, for that beautiful meditation. So today's speaker is someone who we've all gotten to know, and she has knowledge of many subjects. And I look forward to what she shares with us on her knowledge today. Rev Genie.
Thank you, Howard. Good to see everyone here today. Thank you for being with us on special Mother's Day. So maybe you're in your incarnation as a mother, or maybe you've had a previous incarnation. I just want to have us start with 3 breaths just to acknowledge the sacredness of today. So we're going to take 3 breaths together. And on the first one, I'd like you just to experience gratitude to the mother that brought you into this world. And on the second breath, perhaps there's some forgiveness. Perhaps you need to forgive her for something. She did the best that she could with her current level of knowledge and resources. So on this next breath, forgiving your mother. And on the final breath, I'd like you to forgive yourself if you weren't always as loving as you could have been. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all the mothers in our lives, this lifetime and every lifetime. So today my talk is, you are the authority in your life. So if you've been with us at United Fellowship Chapel, you've heard this before, but I think it's so good to revisit it every now and then, because it's such an important idea. It's one of the ways that we're unique. There's so many other people out there in the world who would like to be the authority in your life, or would like to tell you what's right and wrong, whether that be in the field of politics or religion or family or just people, reporters. Everybody has an opinion, right? Isn't that true? Yep, everybody has an opinion. So the whole idea is that we use our own intuition to check in and see what's true for ourselves. So when you hear an opinion by someone who means well, by someone who doesn't mean well, it doesn't matter. What we'd like to say is that don't just accept it, test it. So don't just accept what you hear, test what you hear. And how are you going to test it? You're going to test it by feeling what's true within, by going to your intuition, by using your body wisdom. Because it's so interesting, because mouths and words can lie, but the body often will tell the truth. So when you're feeling if someone has offered their opinion to you, and maybe it's useful or maybe it isn't, but test it out. And the test is, how does it feel in your own body? So if you've taken my intuition class, you've seen us do this. We use our bodies to feel what yes feels like and to feel what no feels like. And that helps us to begin to calibrate, to begin to understand what is really true. And this is one of the ways that we can take back our own power. Does that make sense? Does that sound good to everyone? Yes. So intuition is very important. We really believe in that here. But what's important about intuition is it clear? Are you hearing your intuition clearly? Because sometimes we can hear internal chatter and thoughts. We think it's our intuition, but it may just be another aspect of the mind or another aspect of opinions coming from without or from within. And so we are in a continuous inner discipline of moving towards greater clarity and accuracy. And those of us who are giving messages to others, this is a constant spiritual discipline to be seeking greater clarity, greater accuracy, because we are in service to others as well as to the divine. And one way we can be in service is to be clear, to be a clear channel so that we can hear accurately to the best of our ability. And that's a constantly changing process. But this is so important that we clear off the mud or the dust that's on the glasses as we look out into the world so that we can see clearly, because clarity is the gift of connection. So when we have clarity, we see clearly, we hear clearly, we feel clearly. And this is how we can offer service to ourselves, service to the divine, and service to others. So it's interesting, if you look at any given event, like let's say you're a hawk and you're hungry, and you swoop down and you eat a mouse. Is that good or bad?
Good. Oh.
It's both. It depends on your perspective, right? Right. If you're the hungry hawk, it's very good to get a mouse. If you're a little mouse, it's not so good to meet a hungry hawk, right? So a lot of it depends on perspective. It's not a question of one is good, the mouse is bad, or the mouse is good, or the hawk is good, or the hawk is bad. As Reverend Alexander said, this is life, right? We see this process, and from the point of view of the hawk, it looks a certain way. From the point of view of the mouse, it looks a certain way. And from the point of view sitting in this room, you have another perspective. What's that other perspective?
The hawk has to eat.
The hawk has to eat, right? So we don't necessarily say bad hawk or poor mouse. We simply recognize from our perspective, we can see a little bit of a larger view that there's a place for the hawk and there's a place for the mouse and there's a place for us who can see the place of both. And therefore, we don't need to go into the judgment of bad hawk or poor mouse or any of these things that are archetypes in our own beingness, right? Because do we have a hawk within?
Yes.
Do we have a mouse within?
Yes.
Do we play all these roles? Yes, sometimes in the same day. Yes, sometimes in the same meeting. Right, so we will go through these different cycles. Same with your mother. You have been the mother, you have been the child, you have been the father, you have been all of these roles. And so that gives us a certain grace or a certain perspective for how we can look at these things. So, for example, on 9/11, it was a really interesting story. It only came out once, and then for some reason it disappeared. But some reporter followed up. There were over 1,000 people who were at the World Trade Center who had an intuitive feeling that morning that guided them not to be there. So one man he was a chef at the top of the world, a restaurant, and he had a pair of broken eyeglasses, and they had been broken for a year. But that morning, he said, I have to get my eyeglasses fixed. And he went downstairs and went to the eyeglass place across the street. And for that reason, he wasn't there when the airplane hit. Do you know what I mean? So, this intuition can be very important, but we have to be clear. There was another person whose 5-year-old child, just screamed and went crazy and said, Daddy, don't go to work today. And instead of just saying, oh, my child is having a tantrum, he decided to listen. And that man stayed home, and the rest is history. So, when we hear these stories, it's not to say that the people who didn't have intuition are wrong, but it's to understand how important it is that in our spiritual journey that we develop this process of intuition and how to read clearly. So those of you who are going to choose to take the class that Bob's going to be giving, he'll be giving some classes in dowsing and in other methods of getting clear. And one of the things he's constantly asking, he's been disciplining me in my work with him, is how clear are you in this moment? So maybe I'm 30% clear, 80% clear, or hopefully 100% clear, but I'm not always clear, right? So this is something that as students in our personal development, we are seeking to understand, how can I be clearer so that I can hear clearer and change my own life and change the lives of those around us. Does that make sense? Yeah. So he made an interesting statement in his class that he taught the other day that I was in, and he said, all events are neutral. And when I heard that, I went, grrr. No, they're not. Look at 9/11. How is that neutral, right? But remember our hawk and our mouse, right? So it depends on our perspective. All events are neutral is a really interesting idea. Now that doesn't mean, remember the title of this talk was You Are the Authority in Your Own Life. So because Bob said it or I said it, doesn't mean it's true. But it does mean it's something that you could say, well, what if that was true? What if it isn't true? What does it do when you say, what if all events are neutral? What door does that open up for you? So again, not a question, I'm not trying to defend the statement. I'm not trying to say to you, you must swallow this and take this on. I'm saying, try it on. Test it for yourself. Don't just accept it, test it. So what if all events are neutral? And as you look back on your life, there are many events that we have not called neutral, that we call bad. There have been much suffering that we all in this room and everyone in this planet has endured. But what if we took the perspective not just of the hawk or the mouse, but that third position that can observe it all? Suddenly that mouse and that hawk becomes the neutral thing that we can observe. So this becomes a tool for living. It becomes a tool for clarity if instead of being attached to our position, this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, this is evil, all of these things that we get attached to, what if all events were neutral? And then the corollary of that, what if all emotions were neutral? So instead of calling them good emotions and bad emotions, and anger is bad, or grief is bad, or this is bad, or that, what if all emotions were neutral? They were simply energy that we could use and transform. Then we're not at the mercy of our emotions. Isn't that an interesting idea? Is that empowering?
Yes.
Does that help you to become more powerful in your own life if you're not at the mercy of emotions? If you simply see emotions as energy, as frequency that you can use for various purposes. So is there a place for anger? Yes. Is there a place for grief? Fear? Yes. Yes. So there's a place for all of these events, because if all emotions are neutral and all events are neutral, because we can have the capacity to look at things from a different perspective, then we become more powerful, not at the mercy of events or emotions. And the value of that is that we can see more clearly. Is that useful?
Yes.
Yes, I think so. So there's a saying that if you want a helping hand, where's the best place to look to get a helping hand? The end of your arm. Thank you, Mary. The end of your arm. It's a wonderful quote. Okay? So we are the own authority in our own lives. So when we're seeking help, that help is always from within. And it comes from this relationship to clarity. The clearer that we are, the more we have help. The more we can listen clearly and know how to twist and turn with the twists and turns of life. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does that seem useful to you? All right, so I have just one quote to leave you with. Well, actually, I just want to tell you one quick little story. I think I have time. So the other day, myself and 3 other people were hired by this private company to do a private party for these very highfalutin types, right? These real rich muckamuckas, right? And we were the psychic entertainment. So we were in costumes, I was in a Renaissance costume with velvet and satin and my veil and my gold boots and all this other stuff. And, we were doing palm readings and intuitive readings, psychic readings for all these people who were very left-brained, very high-powered functioning people. These are people who were there. This was a reward for them, this particular event. And, I had told the person who hired me about Sophia, and this person said, fine. And then when I got there, of course, there are many bosses in events like this. Another boss did not know about Sophia, and she threw a fit. And she's like, you can't go out there with those people. They can't see you. You must stay in here. And, it was all like the hired help. Like I couldn't go out where the rich people were who were having all the steak and the champagne and God knows what else they were having out there. She wanted to make sure that I stayed in my little room with my little dog. And of course, all my past life, it was a great opportunity to release a lot of stuff about being treated like the maid, and all this. And it was, it hurt my feelings, frankly. It was painful, right? It hurt my feelings. But the next day, when I saw the gardeners where I live at my apartment, I was just like, hi, how are you? I was smiling at them. And they were so shocked. They were like looking behind, like, who's she talking to? They couldn't believe it. So it was painful in the moment, but it helped me to remember that we're all, that we're all the same, that there is no, this whole class thing is really just a game and it's really not very useful anymore. So it was this so-called negative experience, and I remembered Bob's words, and I said, all events are neutral, as I was in my activation, my little hurt and my little pouty thing, and here I'm supposed to give readings, or I'm supposed to be clear. I'm trying to clear this like really fast. So I can be clear for these superpower guys come in. Mostly it was the wives, actually, but the wives would haul the husbands in after they got good readings, so it was very fun. But that was a great example to me of how an experience that was quote-unquote negative, that hurt my feelings, could be really valuable in opening up my heart and allowing me to have a broader experience in my interactions with others. So that was very wonderful. All right, so I'm going to leave you with one last quote. We all have a better guide inside ourselves, clearer than any other person could be, if only we would attend to it. You'll never believe who said that. Great spiritual master, Jane Austen. Jane Austen said that, right? So really interesting idea that all we need to do is attend to it, pay attention to it, to this inner guidance, and it will not lead us astray. So thank you.
Thank you.